It's Platt, and today we head to Texas to celebrate the holidays. That's next on Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today is Shiner Holiday Cheer. It comes to us from the fine folks at Spoetzl Brewing. Spoetzl Brewing, we've reviewed one of their beers before. It was the Shiner Oktoberfest. Little background of Spoetzl Brewing. Spoetzl Brewing is located in the city of Shiner in central Texas. It's literally not quite the geographic center, but kind of in that deep in the heart of Texas area, as the kids would say. The brewery itself opened in 1909 and was known originally as the Shiner Brewers Association, and is the oldest independent brewery in the state of Texas. Now, in the late 1800s, especially in that central Texas area, but throughout a lot of Texas, there was a large German-Czech immigration to that area. Well, one of the things they missed from back home was classic German-style beers, and the folks in Shiner, Texas decided, hey, we want our own beers and our own breweries, thus starting the Shiner Brewer Association. One of the first beers that they became known for, the first styles, was kind of a unique style referred to as Lenten beer, or specifically as Lenten Bock. Now, if you remember when we try Oktoberfest beers every year, we talk about these styles actually known as Marzen. That is German for March. These beers were produced in March to be ready to drink in the fall for Oktoberfest. Lenten beers are kind of the reverse. They are brewed in the fall and ready to drink after Lent, thus the name Lenten beers. Stylistically, they're similar in style, but just a totally different time frame. And again, they're throwing in the holiday Lent in the name this time. But I thought that was kind of cool. Never heard of the style before researching this. After a couple of years, the Shiner Brewing Association really started to catch on. They kind of said, all right, we need to bring in some real top-flight professional help. We need a world-class brewmaster. That's when they hired a gentleman named Cosmos Spoetzl. Now, Cosmos has kind of a unique story. He did an apprenticeship in some of the classic German breweries, which makes a lot of sense with their heritage. But after he was done with his apprenticeship, he went to Cairo, Egypt, and ran a brewery for 8 years. Now, who knew they were even doing that, 100-something years ago, but over 100 years ago, actually. But apparently he ran a brewery in Egypt for a while and eventually made his way to San Antonio, Texas, and that's when he came in contact with the folks at Shiner. In his contract, he put in a clause that he would have the option to buy the brewery at some point in time, which he did in 1915 and quickly changed the name to Spoetzl Brewing. And the rest, they say, is history. Now, Spoetzl Brewing, like a lot of breweries, took a real hard hit during Prohibition. Spoetzl produced non-alcoholic beer and sold ice to keep the doors open. And after Prohibition, they were only one of 5 breweries in the state of Texas to reopen. That's all in the big state of Texas, they only had 5 breweries survive Prohibition. And I can tell you, even growing up in Texas in the 70s and 80s, there was still 40, 50 years afterwards, there was still not a craft beer movement. I know Bud and Miller had big breweries. Of course, Shiner was around, Lone Star was around, but that was about it. There wasn't a real brewing tradition, but thank goodness Shiner was there to get us through the dark ages. Real quick, let's review some of their other beers. First is Shiner Bock. This is their flagship beer, probably the first craft beer I ever tried. Still today, probably makes up a disproportionate amount of the beer they sell. At 4.4% ABV, though, it's probably technically not a Bock. Bocks tend to be 6% and up. This technically is a Vienna lager. It may actually, even if you read the fine print, it may say it on the label. However, just everybody's referred to it as Shiner Bock for years and years and years, and that's just what it's called. Next is Shiner Premium, also 4.4% ABV. This is based off the original recipe of one of their first mass-produced beers. It's a golden lager. It's not necessarily a Lenten-style beer, but apparently this is their first big mass-produced beer. And they ended up bringing this recipe back in 2013, but it's a replica of their first real big beer. Next is a beer I had to do a double take, and really it's got my interest peaked. It's Shiner Brewers Pride, 7.5% ABV. It is a fruitcake pastry stout. Now, of course, I'm shooting this in December 2021, so it's a holiday season. Fruitcakes are always in style this time of year. And apparently there's a store or a bakery in that Central Texas area that's famous for their fruitcake, so this is kind of an homage to that. But something I'm definitely going to keep an eye on next time I'm in Texas. Lastly is Weisen Easy, a 4% ABV Weiss-style beer. Again, one of those classic German styles. This one does have a little Texas twist, though. It's made with Texas dewberries. Dewberries look like blackberries, but they're smaller like a raspberry. And even though they grow in other states, wherever in Texas, they're kind of known. They grow wild everywhere. So they kind of, took the Weiss and added a Texas twist to it. Spoetzl also has a full line of seltzers if you're into that. Well, with that being said, before we try this particular beer, let's check out the stats. So today I thought I would talk a little bit about the Texas craft brewing scene. I'd said earlier that, again, growing up in the 70s and 80s, and even through a lot of the 90s, there was just not a big craft brew scene in Texas. There wasn't many around, but now, thank goodness, the last 20 years ago, that's changed. So I want to highlight some of the top breweries to check out when you're down in the Texas area. Of course, that's a big state, but do the best you can. First is Austin Beer Garden Brewing, located, of course, in Austin, Texas. It's actually in a warehouse, so the beer garden's indoors. Now, if you've ever been to Austin, it gets a little humid, a little warm. That's not too bad. Also, big thunderstorm, so it probably works on a certain level to have the beer garden indoors. And like a lot of Austin, they have live music. The idea of craft beer and live music together really works. For those of you that may or may not know, Austin is one of the great live music towns in America. Them and Nashville are probably 1 and 2 for just, best live music towns. Next is Deep Ellum Brewing. Deep Ellum is kind of the hip arts district of Dallas, even though that's kind of changed. They've got some other areas now. But when I was going to college in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that was kind of a hip spot down there. Now, apparently this brewery has only been open for the last 10 years or so, but I do remember another Deep Ellum named brewery down there years ago. But a cool kind of hip, eclectic spot, and not in the conservative metroplex. Kind of a nice respite from the rest of that. Next is Revolver Brewer, based in Granbury, Texas. Now, Granbury is about an hour southwest of the metroplex. It's a classic small Texas town. They've got the beautiful old courthouse. They got the little downtown lined with all the little knick-knack shops. There's tons of bed and breakfasts there. The brewery itself is located not too far from Lake Granbury. It's kind of one of those hot spots where if you live in the metroplex but you want to have that couples weekend of bed and breakfast, Granbury's kind of your spot. And if you're stuck with the missus on one of those weekends and want some good beer, go see the folks at Revolver. Lastly is Real Ale Brewing, located in Blanco, Texas. This brewery was opened in 1996, which makes it kind of one of the older craft breweries around. It's kind of been one of the more renowned breweries in the craft brew scene in Texas for a while. Blanco is about 45 minutes outside of Austin, southwest, kind of in the what they refer to as the hill country, not too far from Lukenbach, Texas, made famous by the Willie Nelson song. Austin's a major metropolitan area now, but you get outside town, it's again more old Texas, relaxed. If you get to Blanco and check out the brewery, also check out the Blanco Bowling Club. This is a real old school joint. It's an old school diner / bar, but on the back side of the place they have a bowling alley. But it's not a typical bowling alley. There's only 3 lanes, and they don't have an automatic pin center. They literally on the weekends will hire the local high school kid, and he'll reset the pins when you bowl, and they have a little tip jar for this kid. And they don't have the automatic scorecard either, so you're on an old school projector handwriting your score. It's like you went back in time 50, 60 years. It's just an absolute buzz to check out. And Blanco's just a fun little town too. So if you're in Central Texas, go see the fine folks at Real Ale Brewing in Blanco. Well, enough about Texas breweries. Let's drink a beer from Texas. All right, this is a nice dark copper, lightish brown. This is somewhere between, like, color-wise, Sam Adams, maybe Newcastle. Plenty of bubbles. Head dissipates fairly quick. Oh, a ton of malt on the nose. Let's give her a try. Oh, man, that is good. Holy cow. Wow, that is... Why? Again, it's kind of in between. It's the slightly maltier, darker style lager. Again, like Sam Adams. But you really get those dark toffee notes of the darker malt. Like, we really move into the darker malt areas too. It also has a sweeter punch to it, like those style beers, like, you know, the box and your brown ales and stuff. Man, that is really aha. And I'd forgotten to say this. I'm glad I looked at the bottle. Made with hints of peaches and pecan. I don't get the peaches, but the pecan, now that I see that, it does kind of come through. Yeah, with the sweetness of the pecan, a little pecan pie-like, which is a huge deal in Texas. Real nice beer. Perfect for the holidays. Definitely check it out. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the beer because please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Until next time, bottoms up.